let's transition out of that and let's talk a little bit about AOC calling Nancy Pelosi racist.
Oh man, this is the gift that just keeps on giving. So, as people don't know, if they are been living on a rock, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's what the ultra progressive social media wing of the Democrats. It's the young Democratic movement.
And she is a congresswoman, correct?
Congresswoman, yeah.
Okay.
Pelosi is the speaker, and there's been tension between these two for a while.
Well, also, first off, and you'll probably circle around to this, but AOC is like freshman. Like, she's just now coming into Congress. Nancy Pelosi's been a member of politics for decades, probably since the late 70s, early 80s.
Skull and bones. Like, she has been around through it all.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, little aside. Let's get back into it.
And Pelosi has been repeatedly calling out Ocasio-Cortez for some of the things she says, repeatedly. And the social media progressive wing has been attempting, and really they feel led, like an unofficial head does feel like AOC, has been attempting to snap out the funding of the border wall, among other things. There's definitely a split divide in the Democratic Party right now. I'd say there's Democrats like you, which are, I would say, closer to Pelosi, definitely. And then there's the more new wave progressive. So Ocasio took to, I believe, I think she was in an interview with the Washington Post, I think. But she said, let me go to the beginning. She told them that when these comments first started, I kind of thought that she was just keeping the progressive. This is Ocasio. When these comments started, I kind of thought she was just keeping the progressive flank at more of an arm's distance in order to protect the more moderate members, which I understood. But the persistent singling out, it got to a point where it was just outright disrespectful. The explicit singling out of the newly elected women of color.
Also referred to as the squad. They've kind of coined themselves as the squad. It is 4 women. Yeah, it's kind of unofficially led by AOC. I don't have all 4 of the women's names in front of me right now, but yes, they are definitely getting a lot of press and headlines because they are kind of being lauded as the new face of the Democratic Party in a lot of ways, which, regardless of my feelings about that, this is a very specific conversation. So did Pelosi respond to that?
So Pelosi, let me get there. So many things that have been said. Pelosi essentially, I know, came out and said, speak to Twitter. Don't stop speaking to Twitter and speak to me. Like, if you want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, essentially told her to be a big girl. And there's so much in the last couple days that I can't even keep up with everything that's been said. Overwhelmingly, it does seem like most of the people have rushed to Pelosi's defense. A lot of members of the Black Caucus have come out and been like, Pelosi's not racist. Kamala Harris came out and said Pelosi's not racist. Even Donald Trump came out and said Pelosi's not racist. I believe, what was the exact response? I know she said something. Do you have it by chance? I couldn't pull it up.
Pelosi said? When she said in the... Well, I don't even know what they call it. It wasn't a hearing, but she said exactly that. If you have a problem, don't take it to Twitter, take it to me. And then she also said separately, I think what made this inflammatory in the first place is Nancy Pelosi. Okay, so while there is a big split in the Democratic Party, there is also a lot of times that they all agree. Like, Congress is not super divided. There's been a couple things, a couple days, maybe a couple weeks ago, they were discussing funding for the internment camps or whatever, where they're putting immigrants, and they had a bill proposed to them, but everybody on the Democratic side of Congress, everybody voted for it with the exception of the 4 holdouts, which is the squad. The squad held out because they didn't think the conditions were good enough. They basically said that we're just caving to whatever conditions they gave us. We want to fight for more. Meantime, there's all these people in these camps that are still suffering. They could have definitely got something, but because of this, they're kind of getting nothing. And a lot of people have been asking Pelosi, as the Speaker of the House, what do you think about the squad? What do you think about the squad? What do you think about the squad? They're the big hot new thing. So she's been kind of put in a situation where she's had to address it. And not that she's singling them out. When somebody says, hey, what do you think about the color red? And you say, oh, red's not my favorite color, or red is my favorite color. Then you can't be like, why are they always talking about the color red? Well, they were fucking directly asked. They're not like, that's not the conversation they were necessarily set out to have, right?
Well, and then on top of it too, like you brought up a good point. I actually think Pelosi's politics are very similar to a lot of AOC's actual politics. But Pelosi's a lot more veteran. Honestly, she comes off way more intelligent about the way she does it. They want a lot of the same things, but Pelosi's smart enough to go, I can't come out and just say this because I sound crazy. You know, like it sounds too extreme. It'll scare moderates. She's playing
politics
the smart way.
Yes.
I mean, realistically, she's doing what she has to do to get her agenda across.
Yes.
And I disagree a lot with Pelosi on a policy level, but she is a very intelligent person.
Oh yeah.
You don't get to her level without being extremely intelligent.
I don't believe that any of these women are anything less than probably incredibly intelligent.
I have my doubts about AOC, to be completely honest with you. Some of the stuff she says.
Yes. Now, is she a idealist? Does it border on a little bit radical? Yeah, but I just mean like, conventional intelligence, like whatever, however we quantify it with tests and grades and stuff like that. I'm sure she did really well. I don't think that's the same as making her emotionally intelligent, and it definitely doesn't give her experience. Experience is the thing that she lacks.
I feel like she's maybe ill-informed is a better word.
Sure,
I guess.
Sure.
Maybe intelligent. Maybe that's a better word for it.
Well, and you know, when she comes out and says that what's going on, that and compares them to concentration camps, it makes you look ignorant. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
And then she tried to walk it back, but you're like, no, I didn't mean it like that. You're like, no, you meant it like that. You even said never again. That's clearly a reference to that.
And she constantly says, my people back home, talking about Brooklyn. And it's like, do you think that that's representative of the entire country because the people in Brooklyn agree with you?
And the thing that cracks me up is, her poll numbers, AOC, is becoming quickly hated. Has been for a while.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. So
most people were on the surface, and I was like, dude, you guys, since we've been talking, I'm like, dude, AOC is not what this party needs. And then AOC said, oh, do I think she's a racist? She does this thing that really bothers me, that when people do on left or right, is they make a claim and then they go, oh, but they're not. She goes, do I think she's a racist? No, not. No, I don't think she is. You're like, you literally just said she does something that's racist, but I don't think she's a racist. That's like going, well, this person, I've noticed they have a pattern of murdering people.
Yeah.
They're killing people. But then do I think they're a murderer? No, I'm not saying that. No, that's what you're saying. Own up to it and just say it. And pretty much everyone that I've seen has come out and said, this doesn't look good to fight between us, which I agree, right now. When Trump comes out and he looks like the rational person right now, you're doing something wrong. Yeah,
I think Pelosi's been very measured in her way of dealing with it. She did kind of scald them at that hearing or whatever when she was like, you can put that crap out on Twitter, but you should just come to us. If you have a problem, just talk to us about it. And I think that's where AOC got even more kind of emboldened, and they have gone back and forth. I
don't know if it was her or a staffer said that she's just jealous of AOC's Twitter followers.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. Like, it to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, to me it feels like an adult arguing with a child is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. When somebody asked Pelosi about it, she says they took offense because I addressed, at the request of my members, an offensive tweet that came out of one of the members. Offices that referenced our blue dogs and our new Dems essentially as segregationists. Our members took offense at that. I addressed that. How they're interpreting it and carrying it to another place is up to them. She simply said she's the Speaker of the House. She has to fucking speak on it. And there is a tendency now, and you and I have kind of talked about it before, and it happens a lot on Twitter and stuff. We just saw it happen with our friend Ashley the other day, where like if you say something that's dissenting to what somebody else wants to hear, they can just call you a racist and undermine everything that you say, because everybody doesn't like a racist. So if you say something that can in any way be interpreted that way and they play the racist card, there's so many people that are going to jump on board, you know?
Well, I don't know if you've heard the term, like the saying where they say race, it's a newer thing where they're talking about like racism is a way of saying, I disagree with you. I disagree with the person to my right. So, and in there is a part of me that does have a hard time feeling bad for Pelosi, because she's used this rhetoric toward the right, you know, like, oh, people are racist and that's why. I feel like she's created a culture, and I feel like the left is slowly eating itself in this identitarian culture, because so like Pelosi can say, you know, anyone on the right is racist because she's farther left, but AOC is even more left, and she's farther up on the like victimhood intersectionality hierarchy. So she's allowed to say it about that. And if, you know, a person who came out who was a Muslim trans person, they could say it about AOC, you know, because they're farther down that intersectionalism. I feel like the problem is there has been a culture created by this, where this is the new way to argue. Me and you had a conversation off camera about a conversation I had about politics, and that kind of was the strategy that person used was, well, I don't want to hear your arguments or your interpretations. I'm in a different victim status, therefore I'm inherently right. And right. I feel like that culture has been created and used kind of like a sledgehammer very effectively by the left. But now I feel the difference is, I feel like Pelosi knows it's all bullshit, you know, and doesn't actually necessarily believe in all the intersectionality as much as she pretends. I think she's a very intelligent woman who uses it to get agendas across, because she's a politician. I don't think this is something that plagues the left. I think it plagues the right and the left. They use things to outrage to get what they want. I really do believe AOC believes 100% in this identitarian politics. So I actually think AOC might really believe Pelosi's racist.
She definitely seems like the kind of person, for better or worse, that has conviction. Like, I don't think that what she's doing is disingenuous, where I think politicians in general, like especially the good ones, they've been a little, they've probably become cynical. Like once you get into that system and you see the way that it works, and then we have these new radicals that are coming in that expect that they're going to change the world, and it's good because it's going to take a couple of them before before progress, I don't know.
Yeah, but change isn't always good, you know?
No, but it definitely can be. Yeah. And, so this whole tweet that is being scrutinized has since been deleted. And what the tweet that Pelosi was referencing says, and this was sent out by Cortez's chief of staff, it describes centrist Democrats as new Southern Democrats that certainly seem hell-bent to do to black and brown people today what the old Southern Democrats did in the 40s. Well, fuck you. Fuck you. That is a trash fucking thing to say. That is the most... It is so goddamn offensive. Like, that is the most disgusting. So you can't even be middle of the road.
Playing the struggles of racism in the past, to me, exponentially.
Yeah, we're talking about the era of the Jim Crow laws and shit. Like, and this was
the birth of the Ku Klux coming out of the Southern Democrats.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
It shows a lack of understanding. It shows a lack of sensitivity. And let's be real. For the record, do you think Pelosi's racist? I don't.
No.
I don't see any evidence of it personally.
No.
It kind of reminds me of, and so, you know, you're saying for better or worse, she does have conviction. I do think Ocasio does believe this. Mm-hmm. I think it's very different than Kamala Harris, who made the claim about a very similar claim, implied that Joe Biden was racist just before this. You know, I think Kamala Harris knows without a doubt that Joe Biden is not racist, but she's a smart politician. Mm-hmm. She's using this. She's using it. I don't know if AOC is like what do we call Kamala Harris is. I feel like she's of an age group where she's used that as a shield for a while for anything she disagreed with, to where she believes that, oh, you disagree with me? It couldn't be possibly that you disagree with my tact, my ideas. You disagree with my identity. Everything's seen as an assault on your identity. People who can disagree with me all the time, I don't assume it's because I'm white, or I don't assume, unless they blatantly say, well, you're a white man, you can't talk about this. Then I will assume that. But they have to blatantly state that. I have gay friends who disagree with me on things. I don't assume it's because I'm straight. I think AOC, and maybe I'm giving her too much credit, maybe she is just doing politics as usual. I do think she really does believe this, but I agree. That tweet is hyper offensive to everyone involved.
Do you think that the not assuming that it's because you're straight or white comes from that place of privilege, and that maybe if you did grow up in having the black experience, that if some white person said something to you that you considered to be derogatory, that your mind would default to that because it's so much of your experience that you kind of might have a chip on your shoulder because you've heard about racist people for so long?
I feel like I have a unique perspective on this. So I've talked about I'm a white guy who grew up in a mainly Mexican Hispanic neighborhood. I've actually been jumped with baseball bats for simply being white and been called gringo while I was being assaulted. You know, like actually have. Like this is something that's actually happened to me. I don't bring it up very often because I feel like it's inflammatory for the sake of inflammatory. My point being is I never have looked at Hispanic people and assume they're bad, first of all, because I think that's ignorant. These were bad people who assaulted me, not emblematic of an entire race. I'm also part Hispanic, so it'd be stupid of me. I know my family's Hispanic, you know? But I have a perspective of, if a Hispanic person disagrees with me, I don't go, oh, it's because they really are racist and they hate white people.
But again, that's from your side of the coin, from the other perspective.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I've had blatant racism thrown at me, not even like subtle racism. Now, granted, as a culture, I'm what I see on TV. I would never say I'm a victim. I'm not trying to say that. I know, for example, conservative black people. They don't transcribe to identity politics at all. You're going to tell me their black experience is totally different than another black person's? I just have that hard to believe that one person can have an entirely. I mean, I do think everyone has different experiences.
That's yeah.
I feel like we have created a culture where your identity is everything. We are supposed to be proud of our race, which is fucking weird. You're proud of something that you literally didn't achieve. I shouldn't be proud of being white. Like when a white supremacist is proud of being white, it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
You were born white. Why should you be proud of that?
Yeah.
We place so much emphasis on identity right now that I feel like anyone, and maybe it is because they felt victimized in the past, that any disagreement with them is
you just default to that. And not you, and not me.
No, I know what you mean.
You get what I mean. And I'm not saying that's a justification by any means. I'm just saying maybe it's a very natural human reaction to something like that.
I could actually see that point. If I'm being completely honest, I can understand that point. I really can. That is a natural reaction. But we have to be adults.
We have to rise above the emotional response, especially when you're in a position of power and you're so influential. And there is a lot of upplaying about how important what she's doing is, because Pelosi said, they've got all these social media followers. They're really big on the internet, but there's 4 of them, and that's exactly how many downvotes we got out of how many people, So, like, in the actual political sphere, they're not as influential as they are on Twitter.
Well, and we've covered this. Twitter's an extreme case of leftism, like progressivism. It does not represent America. It doesn't even represent the modern Democrat. You are not maybe it represents the next generation of Democrats.
Maybe so.
I actually think it does.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Overton window is shifting to where you and Pelosi will be called conservatives in a couple of years, and in a couple farther years, you'll be both alt-right,
Yeah.
Because it's shifting enough to where if you stand still while that window shifts, it's gonna change. But they're playing to a base that is like 11% of the country
Right.
is believes in AOC's politics. And she hasn't done shit. I mean, let's be real. She won in a blue district where any blue person could have won, you know? And she won with a very few amount of votes. And we made her into this giant celebrity. And actually, I think AOC is great for the right now. I think she is great she's the best thing that could have happened to Republicans.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And we've talked about 2020 and the how much of a shit show it's going to be with Democrats just all pointing fingers at each other. You're not progressive enough. Whether it's the racism card, whether it's and always I want to step back. If I'm considered conservative in a couple of years, if I'm considered centrist, like whatever the definition, it doesn't change my heart. It doesn't change who I am. I know that I am not a person that has hate in my heart. You can call me whatever the fuck you want to. It doesn't change the fact that, like, I know who I am, and I think that if people can just, like, stand up for themselves as opposed to buckling under the pressure of somebody being like, you're racist, so now I have to prove to you I'm not racist. No, not really. I don't owe you fucking anything,
I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Because I'm actually, I take a lot of right positions on this, mainly sometimes for just literally the point of debate on here, because I think it makes it more interesting. But I'm not that far right from where you are,
right?
Like, I'm really not. I'm just slightly to the right of you, and I've actually swung a little bit left from where I used to be honest with you. I was super left growing up, swung right, and then I swung it back to being more moderate. And it's weird where I'm at now. Even 10 years ago, I would not be considered very right wing at all, from where I am. Like, I'm really not. Like, I'm small government, which makes me right wing, but I'm very pro gay marriage, which I have been forever. I always say I was pro gay marriage before Obama was pro gay marriage, to put in perspective. I'm pretty open to the trans movement. Do what you want. I don't care. I'm pretty open to. I'm married to an immigrant. I'm married to a black woman. I'm like, there's all these. I'm a progressive's wet dream.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like you're right, because I've been definitely. We were talking off camera about conversations I've had where there's been either direct implications that I'm racist or slight nudging that I'm either racist or sexist, where literally my heart hasn't changed. And I feel the proper response is when someone calls you racist without evidence, because that's literally all we do anymore. We just say things without evidence. The proper response isn't to go into a defensive posture. When someone goes, oh, you're racist or you're sexist with no evidence, you don't go, well, no, because I have this. Literally, the response is, no, I'm not.
Right.
And you stick your feet in, because you're not. You know what you are.
Yeah, 100%. And before we transition out of this, because I do think this is a really fascinating conversation, I don't think that it's totally invalid that they're being singled out because they're women of color. I think that the liberals have put them on a pedestal because they are women of color, which in a way singled them out, and they've been getting lots of attention and lots of press because they are there's not a lot of young women of color in Congress. So I think that the celebrity of them has kind of led to them being singled out more than any political system. It's all the attention that's been brought to them by external factors that has kind of put this celebrity upon them. And yeah, when you're in a public forum, if you're in the public eye, there's going to be scrutiny. So I think in a way, they might not have been singled out because they were women of color by people who had a problem with that, but that they were singled out by people that wanted to prop it up. And as a result of that, the byproduct is that people are having to exclusively respond to questions about them.
I would think you're actually 100% right. I feel like they created this essentially, in my opinion, is an actual problem, but they created this problem by using them as like tokenism. Like, look, we have young women of color. Oh my God. And they earned a lot of celebrity unearned. That wasn't really earned, if I'm being honest. They hadn't really accomplished anything yet, but we were propping them up because of their identity. And then they opened their mouths, and I think Pelosi was like, "Oh crap,
Yeah. Yeah.
like this isn't necessarily what's good for the party right now. Like, cool your jets," and has to address it. It's kind of a monster they created, and since they rose them up using their identity as the basis of it, it kind of makes sense that they can use that now as defense of it, because that's why. I don't want to say that's why they're there, because no, they won elections, but that's why I think the celebrity is partially the way it is.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi said, and I really respect this quote. She says, "What I said in the caucus yesterday got an overwhelming response from my members because they know what the facts are and what we've been responding to. We respect the value of every member of our caucus. The diversity of all of it is a wonderful thing. Diversity is our strength. Unity is our power." So what a great way to still use. It is a strength. I do believe diversity is a powerful thing. I think that it creates a good image, but we have to stop with the tokenism. I think that there's value to what you said, is like, can't it just be? Why does it have to be a political thing? And, I think that's a lot of, and this is a stupid aside, but I think that's a lot of the difference between Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, and the way that people responded to both of them is, if you try to politicize it, there's going to be pushback from it, where if it just is, people will accept it. We've always loved kick-ass female action heroes ever since Ellen Ripley, ever since Sarah Connor. Like, there have been very strong female characters that everybody was cool with. Yeah.
Wonder Woman, or at the same time, Battle Angel Alita, strong kick-ass woman, got no blowback at the same exact time. Correct. Captain Marvel was in the theater, and I think you're right. Just let it speak for itself is stronger, and in my opinion, a lot more progressive. To let someone if they were not referring to, and she refers to herself obviously as a quote applied, but if they were not referring to the squad as women of color, and they weren't referring to themselves as women of color, they were just powerful people in Congress, then to me that's way more powerful.
Yeah.